Hello, this is Dr. Ahmed Abdelal, and the purpose of this is to give you a summary, an overview of the development of communication skills across the lifespan, basically from birth until age 21. So here we are going to speak about the major communication milestones. We'll also speak about the basic aspects of language itself, because in order to study language, you need to understand the components, the major components. And there are five major components of language that we will discuss, and then we will take each one of them and explain when each one begins to develop and the milestones, the major kind of skills that someone obtains or develops at a particular stage in time. So that's what a milestone is. So we're going to speak about these in general, and we'll trace all these five major language components one by one. And then at the end, I will provide again a table that has a summary of these milestones. So please take some good notes, and again, some of these questions, some of these what we discuss will be included in the quiz. So let's go over some of the concepts, the major basic concepts of language. First, we have to distinguish between communication, language, and speech. And the difference is very important, so please take some good notes. Communication is not limited to human beings. All species have their system of communication. Fish communicate together with each other, ants, bees, and so on. So communication basically is the process of transmitting a meaningful message to another member of the species. That message could be verbal, could be spoken. That message could be written. That message could be signed. That message could be a chemical message, say like ants, for example. Trees communicate with each other, and so on. So again, it is the process of conveying a meaningful message from one member of the species to another member. So with that in mind, communication requires a sender and a receiver. Obviously, the sender is the one who gives the signal or gives the message. So here, the word message means anything that has meaning that you want to pass on to someone else. You go like this, that's the message. You go like this, that's the message. So, or saying a word, whatever it is. So this is what we mean by message. It doesn't have to have like linguistic meaning that you write. For example, bees have various dances that they use when they go scout for a new home, for example. They will go, and the scouts go and find a new location. They come back and dance in a certain way to show the members of the species, the members of the hive, where and how that is located and the distance and all of this. So then they fly, and then the rest of the hive will fly after them. They will dance to show particular dances to show where the food is located, and all. They have very sophisticated systems of communication. The same for ants. So the important thing is that you want to convey something to someone, and that person is able to get it and understand it and act upon it. In that regard, you are the sender, the one who gives the message, and then the one who gets the message is the receiver. And communication requires that both, like the individual, sending and the one who is receiving, both of them use the same system, the same code of communication. And also it means that the one member of the species plays both roles. They play the role of sender and also they play the role of receiver, because communication is a two-way street. So then language is one kind of communication, language. That language, for example, for us as humans, we use language. So sign is also language, sign language. It has grammar, it has particular, words, it has vocabulary, and so on. So language in general is the kind of communication that human beings use in order to communicate with each other. So you look at it as the greater umbrella is communication. Anything that you do, facial expression, smile, frowning, anything you do, body language, all of that is communication. Then one specific kind of communication is language. Okay, so language is the system that is made up of words and grammar and so on that we use as human beings to convey our messages, to communicate with our species, members of our species. So language includes words and meaning and sentences, grammar, and so on. But then we have speech. Speech is a kind or a subdivision of language. It is part of language. So language includes other things. But speech is the externalization of that language using muscles and organs of speech. So that is the voicing of the language, the articulation of the sounds. That is the production of this language in a fluent way. So you could see that speech includes voice. Is your voice loud? Is it soft? Is it raspy? Is it clear? Is it hoarse? And so on. Voice. And speech includes the way you articulate your sounds. That is speech articulation. And then speech includes fluency, or the ability to produce speech that is flowing naturally, coordinated with the way that you breathe, so it has rhythm, and maintaining the melody and the natural flow of communication without having to stop and pause and do a lot of gap fillers or things to buy time, and so a lot of things that will make someone's speech disfluent are what we call gap fillers. When someone says, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the store and buy some stuff," stuff is meaningless. Doesn't mean anything. When you say like when you say doesn't mean anything. It's only, these are words that we use in order to buy time, so that we hold the microphone, and as long as you're holding it, no one is gonna take your turn. So again, communication is the domain, the major umbrella under communication. One kind of communication is language, okay? And part of communication is body language. So language includes 5 components that we will speak about. Language is about meaning, linguistic meaning of concepts. Speech doesn't have to do with meaning. It focuses on the manner, the method, the way that you produce that language in a verbal manner, using your voice, articulating your sounds, and producing those sounds and the words and sentences in a fluent manner. So again, when we say someone has a speech disorder, we imply that person either has a voice disorder, a stuttering disorder, or a speech sound disorder. When we speak about someone having a language disorder, we speak about someone having difficulty to understand the language of others, or difficulty expressing himself or herself in spoken or in written language, using good grammar, using diversified vocabulary, accurate concepts, and so on. It is all about the meaning of concepts. On the building, I don't like to call them building blocks, but we call them the 5 language, basically 5 language parameters. But for speech, we say the building blocks of speech itself are phonemes. So I'll tell you what a phoneme is. A phoneme is basically one unique sound. One unique sound. Has nothing to do with spelling. Phonetics is the study of the phonemes, how we produce them, what muscles are active. Do you produce these sounds in the front of, say for example, in the front of the mouth, in the back, in the high in the mouth, and so on? Do you produce these sounds with a friction, or do you produce them with a stopping? As I will discuss that in a few minutes. So a phoneme is the smallest sound unit of the language. It is a sound unit when you take out of a word. The word doesn't become the same word. The word either breaks down, it doesn't become a word at all, or it doesn't mean the same thing that it did mean. Let's say, for example, take the word pitch here under prosody. Pitch. P is a phoneme. I is a phoneme. And then ch is a phoneme. Pitch. So ch is one single sound. Ch. And in that case, the word pitch, even though it has 5 letters, it has 3 phonemes. So p, I, ch. And let's say, for example, that you take the p out, the one phoneme out of it. The p is gonna leave you with another word. So pitch has nothing to do with itch. And now if you take the ch out, then the word is gonna be kind of very different. So again, a phoneme is the smallest sound unit of the language that if you take out of a word, that word either doesn't become a word anymore, or it becomes a different word. Phonemes by themselves have no linguistic meaning, individual phonemes. However, they have the power to determine the meaning of a word. So when you add it to a word, you are gonna make a new word, or which you change, you alter the shape and the form of that word. For example, take the word place, place. Let's say the L is taken out, the L sound. So what will you have? You're gonna have pace if you have taken that out. It doesn't matter that this is a CE, we don't care. In phonetics, we only focus on the sounds as you hear them, not as you write them. For example, in English, there are 43 phonemes. 43 phonemes, each one is unique, and each one has a symbol that only stands for that sound. And we have the spelling. Spelling, you have 26 letters. However, many of the letters, they just can be said in different ways. So, for example, the CH, you can say, hi, Charlotte, or you can say, I go to the beach. So the CH can be pronounced as a sh or as a ch, for example. And the C sound can be k, it can be s, and it can be, what else? K or C. And if you combine it with this with the H, you're gonna get a different. So again, the focus of when we study phonemes, we do not focus on the meaning of the individual sounds, or we just focus on the sound itself, how it is produced, and how we our muscles and organs of speech articulate it. So the allophones are different variations of a phoneme, different ways of producing that same phoneme. For example, when I say cool, when I say the k, I don't have to round my lips at all. K, they are neutral. K. Now, when I say oo, I have to round my lips. I can not make the phoneme oo without rounding and protruding my lips. So then notice if I say, when I say the word cool, before I say the ka, I have to round my lips. Cool. So in that case, the o, the ko becomes rounded. It doesn't alter the meaning, but it is a different way of saying the ka. When I say book, book, my lips are shaped differently. When I say the same sound k, if I say the word key, when you say key, before you say the k sound, your lips are retracted, just because the sound that is coming after the k is retracted. So in anticipation and to speak fast and effectively, we focus, we modify that sound, we will be ready when we say that the E or the O will be ready. So in other words, even though in the words car, cool, key, the phoneme k is the same phoneme, that sound is produced in 3 different ways by the lips. And the allophones have no relationship with meaning. Okay, so they are just simply in a kind of what you call modifications that we do in anticipation of what sounds are coming after. So allophones are different ways of producing the same phoneme. Then we have the concept of minimal pairs. Minimal pairs are 2 words that are different only in a single phoneme. So when you say, for example, share and the word chair, so share as in sharing and chair, what sound are they different in? Obviously the initial sound, the first sound. So these are a minimal pair. Sometimes we call that a minimally contrastive word pair. Another example, again, write notes because you will be asked to give examples and to give particular definitions. Another example, hay and hair. So the final is different. Another example is snack and stack. So the middle is sound, the t and the n are different. So these two words mostly they tend to be monosyllabic, one syllable, mostly. And they tend to differ in a single sound, where each word, say, would have that a different sound at the beginning than the other word, or a different sound at the end. But the important thing is they cannot differ in more than one sound. So that is what a minimal pair is, and we use these minimal pairs as an effective way of teaching students who have speech sound disorders how to produce particular sounds. For example, when a child cannot say the one of the exercises I would do with them is say bay. They say bay, and then I say, now say bear. Hey, hair. Now say, so for example, there's a whole list. You can make a great list of minimal pairs that you can use to increase the person's awareness of the presence of that sound. That is one of the reasons that children cannot produce the sounds accurately, because they have not internalized the representation of the sounds that they hear over time. And by giving these minimal pairs, you are alerting them, you are enabling them to pay attention to the difference, and they can hear the sound better over time, and as a result they will be able to produce it effectively. Then we have 3 ways when we describe consonants. We have 3 ways of describing each consonant. Okay, each consonant is described based on the place where in the mouth where it is produced. For example, the sound th. Where is it produced? How is it produced? We put the tongue between the 2 teeth. Anything between the 2 teeth we say interdental. Interdental. Or we can call it linguadental. So say the tongue is in between the teeth, interdental. Th. Then what does that sound like? What does it sound like basically? So it makes like a friction noise. So this is what we say when the manner in which the sound is made. A sound can be a stop, like p, t, d, k, g, or it can make a friction, sh, j, s, and it also in terms of voicing, there are only 2 ways we can describe a sound, a consonant, either as voiced or voiceless. Voiced means that the vocal folds are active, they are vibrating when we are making the sound. Voiceless means that the vocal folds do not vibrate. Again, take the th, for example, as in bath. You can test yourself, put your index finger and your thumb on your larynx, raise your hand a little bit up, and say or bath. There should be no movement here at all. There should be no vibration. Now say instead of bath, say bathe. And you can feel the vibration here, and you can feel it here in your throat. Say, for example, breath. Now say breathe. You can feel it. So is voiced. Yes. Okay. So any sound that is a consonant. We describe that sound using 3 different ways, and all these ways apply to every single consonant. We have different ways of describing vowels. So please pay attention and be ready to take examples and to write down examples. So just to simplify this, it's in your textbook. To simplify it, I'm going to show you the origin of this. Just getting a link. So the sounds as we produce vowels, we make something called the quadrilateral. Means the shape, a shape that has different sides. Each side is different. That represents the oral cavity, the space in the mouth that is available for speech. As you could see, for example, when you say the ooh, the sound, the tongue is in back of the oral cavity, and the tongue is lifting up, and we call this sound high, and we call it back. Now, in terms of one more thing that we do with vowels, 2 more things. We look at the lips. Is that sound rounded or not? When we say ooh, it is rounded. If it's not rounded, we say unrounded. And then we kind of say if that sound requires greater muscular force, it means is it long or is it like tense? It means it requires more muscular tension, or is it lax? Which usually lax sounds are shorter, and sounds that are tense, they are longer. So then you can see here, for example, this is the space inside of the oral cavity that is available for speech. We take it and make it this way. So when we show this shape, we call it the quadrilateral, and that represents the space in the mouth where the organs of speech, especially the tongue, produces these sounds. So, for example, here is the front of the mouth. When you say, and here's back, here is the top of the mouth, the oral cavity. Here is, the bottom of it, like low, and the sound can be in the middle. So let's go over these using this chart, this quadrilateral, and then we can go back and look at the words that you have there. I'll say each symbol. These are international phonetic alphabet symbols that are used to so that we can have one single symbol for one single sound. For each English phoneme, these are vowels. For each single vowel, we have one unique IPA symbol. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 English vowels. You notice I ignored this one. This one is not typical of American English. It is found in particular conditions, but it's not a typical American sound. So, again, remember, we do not worry about the classical way of looking at sounds. We just look at the vowels, means how we hear them. And there are, according to what we hear, there are 14 English vowels. The rest are consonants. The rest of the 43. So there are 19 consonants. So here, the E, that symbol here is E, as in ear. as in deer, as in eat, okay, feed. So you have multiple examples for each one. You should be able, when I show you a symbol, you should be able to give me a word or to identify the word in which that symbol occurs. Then the that is, the symbol is, we use the capitalized I letter. So that is So as in, excuse me, as in it, or as in kit, or sit. So here, in order to understand the difference between these two, if you have the word seat, the E is tense, it is longer, seat. And if you make it, replace the E with this one, you have a different word. It will be sit, seat, sit. Okay? Feet, fit, feet, fit. Of course, again, don't worry about the spelling. So these are examples. Both the E and I are high, they are front, and so high front sounds, both of them. And then the E is tense and the I is lax. Both of these are unrounded. To make it easy for you, the only rounded vowels are the back ones. Most of the back, 4 of the back ones, 2 of the middle ones. There are 6 in all. So these are high front sounds. The U and O are high back sounds, high back phonemes. U is tense and O is lax. Okay, so let's take examples of words. U as in pool, pool. If you reduce that, make it shorter, it will become pull, pool, pull. Okay, fool, full. So again, the U is tense, the O is lax. Then we have both of them are high, both of them are back, both of them are rounded. This sound is, ignore the example in your textbook for this sound, because when you study phonetics, you are gonna see it, you study it more deeply, and I'm giving you that perspective right now so that there would be no confusion. As in the word Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So the word day here, this is what we use to transcribe that sound, that A at the end when you say day, like Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, all the days of the week, basically. They take that symbol for A at the end. So that is a mid-front, tense, unrounded vowel. The E as in head, read, bed, said. That E is high, mid-high, mid-front, lax, unrounded. Then the A as in cat, as in sat, as in mat, that A has 2 pieces together, and this is what you find in words like cat, for example. So that is a low front, lax, unrounded. So every time I only use 4 words to describe each one of these phonemes. This is how we describe vowels. And then basically based on the position of the tongue. Is the tongue high in the oral cavity, or mid or low? Is the tongue far to the front? Is it in the center, or is it back? Then we have the back ones. We explained U and O. They are high back. And then we have O, as in, say, for example, Melrose. Melrose. As we have, so words like fructose. Usually multiple meaning, multisyllabic words. Only comes this way in multisyllabic words. And then we have the O, and that is an older way. I mean, not many Americans are using it, but it is found in words like when you say thought, caught, and fought. That most of the American speakers replace it with like say Cape Cod becomes Cape Cod. So that's the older way of making the O sound. You still find it in some remnant words that all of us produce, but they are rare. And then we have the So again, O and O, both of these are mid, back, and rounded tense, both of them. And then we have the as in car, jar, star. This symbol for that it is a low back unrounded tense, or low back tense unrounded vowel. Then we have the schwa. It's a famous sound in phonetics, schwa. It is the least stressed sound in the language, and it comes as in the words like about, alone, at the beginning, it is very weak. So that's the symbol for it. It's a mid, central, unrounded, lax vowel. And then we have the as in mud, hug, cup, So that sound is a mid, central, unrounded, lax, or a mid, central, lax, unrounded vowel. Then we have these two symbols. The top one stands for strong as in bird. Stir. I'd like to have a stir fry, or stir fries. Blur. So you see, very kind of tense, and it stands for that sound. Usually the spelling would not give you an indication of that, but it is usually two letters blended in or more blended in to make that sound. As when you say bird, curd. So that's a mid, central, tense, rounded, stir. And is also rounded. Most of the time you find it in words that have er, as in maker, baker, farmer, So that's like a less tense, exactly the same way you say the but it is lax. That's the only difference. So it's a mid, central, rounded, lax vowel. So these are all the phonemes in English that are vowels. And we focused on American English in particular. And we'll come to actually, we'll get back to the chart. Now you can read the chart. You can understand what high, mid, low mean, what front, central, and back mean. And you have examples here as in E. The symbols again in your textbook are not very consistent. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, they are okay, but they a couple of them are not uh, very deep into phonetics. So you have E as in key, you have O as in loot, I as in lip, A. This one we do not use. That example is not a very good example. So use the day at the end of the words of the week as midday, Sunday, Monday, and so on. You'll know the reasons when you take phonetics if you have not already taken it. Ah, eh, they are mid, central. Excuse me. The air conditioner is on, and it gets me some allergies. I've taken the vaccine twice. So so in here the epsilon we call it as in Ben. I have been. How have you been? Or head, red, and then you have the and you have the as in curd. So that example is for the first one. The second one, they should have given a different example because these are two different phonemes. And then you have the O as in look and the O as in boat. And then you have the O as in bought. So then we have the consonants. For consonants, let's see. For consonants, I wanted to show you a different chart. That makes it easier, and then you can it will help you understand your the chart in your textbook better. And of course, all of these you are gonna have in detail. You are gonna study them in detail, and when you take phonetics. So here's one table that will show you the three ways that we use in order to describe every consonant. So the idea of describing consonants and vowels is to identify each phoneme as unique, and when you describe the characteristics of that phoneme, no other phoneme applies to it. No other phoneme will be exactly the same, otherwise it will be the same sound. So it's like you have 43 people in the class. You say, where's Samantha? And they have 3 people raising their hands. But what do you do in order to identify the one you are looking for? You say, where's Samantha Smith? 2 people will raise their hands, but that is not enough. They say, where is Samantha Claire Smith? And that way only one will raise their hand. So what you do is you create categories and you narrow down the descriptors so that each sound has its own unique set of descriptors. So we use, again, as I mentioned before, we describe any consonant based on is it voiced or voiceless? Is it, the manner in how does it sound, like what is the quality of the sound? And then the place of articulation inside of the oral cavity. So let's do them quickly. You can follow this, pause and follow this chart, and you should be able to do everyone in the quiz. You will have them in questions, and you should be able to identify the different ones from the the multiple choice questions. So let's take the p and let's take the stop sounds. All sounds, all consonants are divided into stop consonants, fricative consonants, affricate consonants. These make a group called the obstruents. They are produced with a significant blockage. And there's another group that is sonorants. This is the less in number. This only consists has 7 sounds. So in terms of manner, we have obstruents, non-obstruents, and then we have the obstruents to include stop sounds, fricative sounds, affricate sounds. So let's look at the stops. Here, there's the p and b, t and d, k and g. And this sound, this symbol, stands for the when you say utterly. So that is called the glottal stop. It's a sound as in when some people might say cotton. You don't say cotton, say cotton, button, button. So you notice you closed the vocal folds completely, closed the airway. So that's why it's called the glottal stop. So then, all of these together share one thing, is that they are all stops. The airway is blocked when you make any one of these. P, B, T, D, K, G, A. In terms of placement, each one has a different, or each two of these has a different placement except for the last one. So the P and B, both lips are involved to make them. We call them bilabial sounds. So the p will be, for example, in terms of the description, it's a stop and a bilabial. Then p is different from the b in the fact that p is voiceless, b is voiced. So now p becomes voiceless bilabial stop. The b is the same except that is voiced. Voiced bilabial stop. T, d. T is voiceless. D is voiced. And both of them are stops. These both are called alveolar sounds. So we go and say T is a voiceless alveolar stop. D is a voiced alveolar stop. Then we have the K and G. Both of these are velar, means in the back of the mouth, and the velum or the soft palate. So K is voiceless, G is voiced. So K becomes a voiceless velar stop. And then G is the same except that it is voiced. And then the A is a voiceless glottal stop. So tracing it this way, you should be able to identify these very easily and to practice so that at least you can have one example whereby you can distinguish or identify if one sound is a stop, a fricative, or affricate. Then we have the fricative sounds. This category is the biggest one. So both of these are labiodental. Lips, the lower lip comes in contact with the upper teeth, upper front teeth. F is voiceless, v is voiced. Both of them are fricatives, they come out with a friction. So f becomes voiceless, labiodental, fricative. V is voiced, labiodental, fricative. And then this symbol, th, is the theta, as in math, as in thumb. The is the, as in feather, bathe. So th is voiceless. We don't call it dental. We call it interdental or lingua dental fricative. Z is a voiced interdental or voiced lingua dental fricative. And then we have s and z. The s is voiceless alveolar fricative, while the z is the same. It is voiced alveolar fricative. And the sh is voiceless postalveolar or voiceless, we call it sometimes palatal fricative. J, as in as in garage, um, or seizure or pleasure. That sound is a post alveolar, or you can call it palatal fricative, and it is voiced. The ch, I'm sorry, the sh is as in share or cash. It's a voiceless post alveolar or voiceless palatal fricative. And then you have the h as in hand, he. So that's a voiceless glottal fricative. This is the biggest category. So now we have two phonemes that are made by combining a stop phoneme with a fricative phoneme. We have the t, combine it with the sh, becomes ch, ch as in cat, ch. That is an affricate. So the ch is a voiceless voiceless post alveolar or voiceless palatal affricate. And then the j as in page, judge, cage, is a voiced postalveolar affricate. I am not gonna discuss the next group. It is another major group of sounds that of course you'll study all of this in phonetics, and I just wanted to give you some sample. So I'd like you to know the main categories. You'll have some examples, some sentences, words like say, some questions like this. The p is a blah blah blah. Is that true or false? Or the p is a stop, a fricative, affricate, and then you identify it from the the choices that you have. So it will be all multiple choice, so that it shouldn't be high density kind of. Okay, so then let's go back to our. You should be able now to read this and to understand it better. So now we spoke about speech and phonetics. Now we are going to speak about language quickly. And language is everything about meaning. And language has 5 parameters. First one is semantics. We call this language content. Semantics. The meaning of words and the meaning of sentences. Then language form, the structure that gives language its form, consists of phonology, which is the sounds of the language, morphology, word formation and how to form syllables and words, and syntax. So morphology in terms of morphology, we study 2 different aspects. One is called a free morpheme. A morpheme is the smallest, pay attention to this, the smallest meaningful linguistic unit, okay, of the language. Meaningful here means concept. It means a concept. It means linguistic meaning. If you say table, you say, oh, table, it is just the thing that we use that has legs and has a surface we use in order to study or to eat or so on. So that's linguistic meaning. So when you say hippopotamus, it is an animal that does this and it looks like this and that. So morphemes, one morpheme is the smallest linguistically meaningful unit of language. And one morpheme stands for one concept. Morphemes are not about the length. There are words that are tremendous, yet they mean one morpheme. And words that are very small, they mean one morpheme. When you say hippopotamus, when you say establish, table, chair, usually whole words are morphemes. Free morphemes, we call them. That means they can give you meaning without having to be attached to anything else. There's a set of morphemes that cannot give meaning unless you attach them to a freestanding morpheme. We call these bound morphemes. I'll give you a few examples, so please take notes. So we have the word cat. Now we put the sound S at the end of cats. What does that mean? If you take the word cat away and put the S by itself has no meaning at all. The only way that you can make it give meaning is to attach it to the word cat. Cat is a free morpheme. The S is a bound, is an attached morpheme. So in that case, the S gives meaning to cats. Cats means an animal. It's a feline, the small feline that has a tail, 4 legs, eyes, and so on, fur. Then the S, the meaning of that S means equals more than one of that cat. Boy, S, boys. The S means more than one of that boy. So plural, in other words. Another example is, say, beauty. If you attach full to the end of it, full by itself, it doesn't necessarily, when you say, or let me give you a different example that's not confusing. Let's say heavily. How did you do that? You know, heavily. I moved towards that heavily. So, or I emphasize that word heavily. So the ly at the end means how that action was performed. It contributes, it shows you additional meaning. But by itself, the ly doesn't mean anything. So these are examples. We have words like, bound morphemes like ness. For example, kind. When you say kindness. So ship, friendship. So again, these are examples of bound morphemes. So morphology is the science of word or the study of word formation. Syntax is grammar. Syntax is the scientific study of grammar of a given language. Language use is pragmatics, social communication, and how you organize your messages best in order to make them focused and to convey your message to make it very effective. That is discourse and social communication. So again, the 5 blocks of language include, number 1, semantics, 2, phonology, 3, morphology, 4, syntax, 5, pragmatics. These 5. Out of these, we describe semantics as the meaning of the language, the content of the language, and we describe phonology, morphology, and syntax as the form, the bricks, and the materials to build that language. And then language use is how to use that language to achieve specific purposes and social goals. You might use it to greet, you might use it to order, you might use it to share ideas, share thoughts, whatever purpose you are using language for in whatever context. That is pragmatics. So in terms of development, I will try to be brief so that the video doesn't become very long and drag on. It takes longer time to upload. So from 0 to 24 months, we're going to study the major highlights, I'm going to review the major milestones. Preschool to, during the preschool years, which go from 24 months to 5 years. And then 5 years to 21 years, the school age years, from kindergarten to end of college. And then adulthood. So in terms of speech, we are speaking about speech. Around the second month, the baby begins to go through a stage called cooing, when they make vowel sounds and sounds that are similar to vowels. Then age 4 to 6, they will babble. 3 to 4 months. 3 to 4 months, the baby babbles, makes ma, da, ga, ga, making different consonant sounds and combined with vowel sounds. And that babbling becomes more diversified. It becomes more intentional and more varied between 6 and 8 months. So that becomes it just comes right a few months before the baby is able to produce sounds. It's like practicing. And the strength of the babbling and how frequently the baby babbles and so on actually predicts how well that development of that language, that child's language, is going to be. The baby understands simple words between 6 and 8 months. And between 10 to 14 months, the biggest milestone will be achieved in language, which is to produce the first word. Usually between 10 and 14 months, we say by the first birthday, the baby should have his first word or her first word. At the meantime, at that time, they produce jargon. They just made up words. They just, like you find on YouTube a lot of videos where a baby is reading a book. A baby is like 2 years old and flips the pages and, says different things. And they are not words, but he is or she is pretending that they are reading. So that is called jargon, meaningless utterances that look like words but are not real words. Between 16 and 24 months, they begin, number one, they have a major vocabulary spurt. They develop vocabulary very fast at that time, and that enables them to combine words to begin to make sentences. So it is called the word combination stage. That's a milestone that occurs between exactly between 18 months and 24 months. And the baby also begins to learn the first grammatical morphemes, like saying cat, cats, dogs. They can use the plural morpheme. 2 years to 5 years, the preschool stage, the baby first, the vocabulary grows very quickly. On average, between ages 12 months and 6 years, the baby acquires about 6 to 8 words per day on average. So at that time, between 2 and 5 years in particular, the baby has an expressive vocabulary of 200 words, and that vocabulary reaches 1,800 words by age 4 years. And then there are expressions, the semantic words that have to do with the relationship between one family member and the other, or between one person and something else. For example, when we say Billy was riding his red bike, so the word his connects Billy and connects that riding, all the first part of the sentence, with what comes next. What was he riding his red bike? How or where? Down the street. So here, his it connects, it establishes a relationship between the doer and the object of the action. So the baby gets these relationships. Agent means the subject of the sentence. Action means the verb. Ownership means, someone owning, or someone has something related to them. And then the state means, for example, I am happy. I am. So the state of being, in other words. And also they know the object, or like I ate my rice. I ate my breakfast. That's the object. And location, like where, and so on. Preschool years, the child continues to develop phonology, continues to develop morphology and syntax, and also discourse. These were present before, however, they are being expanded. So just to give you an idea, by the 7th month, actually, the child has mastered, or by 11th month of life, they have mastered all the phonetic repertoire of their native language. So as they continue to speak, to verbalize, they make mistakes because they are still learning how to produce the sounds. So they would make mistakes like omitting a sound, like when we say frog, say fog. But that improves without intervention. All children have these things at a certain stage. And when you say light, they might say white. So these are substitutions. And then there are distortions. For example, if the S is not very crispy and clear, or the for example, they have sound difficult, like some sounds are not yet clear between 2 and 5 because they are still developing these sounds. And every sound has a particular stage where it should occur. In terms of morphology and syntax, between 2 and 5 years, they know the plural sounds and the plural markers, except that there will be the irregular words, irregular plurals, like goose, geese, foot, feet, and so on. They are not going to know all of this yet. They will continue probably until age 7 or 8 before they master these, the irregular ones. Clauses, they're able to make like little clauses, very little sentences, like subject, verb, object, like I ate the apple. Subject, verb, object. A clause is like a couple of words combined together. And auxiliary verbs are the verbs that we use in order, like is, are, was, were, and like I am writing. We are. They just have functions like indicating the tense of the verb, or indicating the condition, and so on. So the babies, children between 2 and 5, they master these. Discourse is the production of connected speech. However, it includes these. It is, speech beyond one sentence. Conversation and narration. For conversation, the child at that time is able to assert herself or himself using communication. Like, they can speak, excuse me, may I go to the bathroom? That's assertion, assertiveness, advocating basically for themselves using language. Responsiveness is when someone speaks to them, they reply back. Narration, that is, at that time they're able to tell what happened to them, the events of the day. They can speak about themselves, tell stories, and fictional stories are also they are able to produce fictional stories at that time. Of course, these skills will be even more developed if you read to the child, if the child is being enriched and being read to every day. And now, between ages 5 and 12 and 21, there is the development involves expansion of the vocabulary. Just to give you an idea about vocabulary, by the end of high school, a person should have about 60,000 words. By the end of a 4-year college, they should have around 120 or at least 120,000 words. So these are based on older research, because now, since the internet has been expanding our vocabulary and left and right, we haven't really seen new research yet to tell us how many words but the minimum by the end of 4-year college is to have 120,000 words. So that we continue to develop that. And also, one concept, we understand the different meanings of it, and we expand the same little concepts that we had before, or we add to these concepts. Phonological awareness, that is a skill that appears very early in life, and definitely at 5 years of age is what enables the child to learn how to read. For example, phonological awareness. I'm going to ask you, say 2 words or 3, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the word that doesn't begin with the same sound as the others. So I say car, key, tomato. So obviously tomato doesn't. I can do the same for the end, and so on. Sound segmentation. In other words, if I say the word run, can you segment it into individual sounds? N. So the child can do these things early, like really at 5 years of age. And also relational semantics, children learn how to use figurative language. They kind of master this by age 11 years or 10 years, idioms based on what they're exposed to in their culture. So generally, in summary, for this piece, the language, whether speech or language, are mastered, fully mastered by age 10 years. So the language of a 7-year-old resembles that language of an adult. However, the child expands and expands more. By age 10 years, they have mastered the language and the grammar and everything. And all they do is that they, between 10 years and 21, they are expanding their vocabulary and expanding the different social communication methods and so on. That is in a nutshell, based on the most recent research that came out in 2021. Morphology and syntax, I'm going to ask you to kind of review these. They are straightforward. I'm going to comment or add if I see necessary. The school age years, definitely pragmatics. It continues to grow throughout the school years, and pragmatics emerges at birth. The interaction between the child and the caregiver and so on continues to we use it to regulate our social communication, and we make it more sophisticated and more sophisticated throughout our life. Let's say, for example, you know how people in your community communicate. What is the best way to convey a message to them? What is the best way to use language to establish good and positive relationships and interactions among with you and the members of your community? Let's say you master that, you know exactly how to do that effectively, but then you go to a different part of the country, and then you are going to learn more. You are going to learn different ways of communication. For example, in the north of the country, life is more like business, busy. If you go to New York, people are not going to be like, telling stories. You call someone, tell me exactly, you call, what do you want? In Boston and so on. In here in the South, people tend to have more of that social interaction. How are you doing? And this and that. And then you get into the topic. So it is not to mean like this is better or than this or that. No, both methods work for the different communities or the different parts of the country. That's what people accept and what's acceptable to them. But it is the difference. When you go north, you have to learn how to do that like they do, so that you are not looked at as, you know what, you are wasting my time. I'm sorry. Or you come here, you would be perceived as like not friendly and so on. So by traveling, seeing other cultures, seeing other places, you continue to expand pragmatics throughout your life. So again, it's the skill of language that's most complicated. It emerges at birth and continues throughout your life. It never reaches maturation as long as you travel and see new places in the world. And then adulthood years. Again, the new research shows a better picture than this. There are some skills, of course, that start to decline cognitively and so on for aging, but the ages are different. And the fact is, adults use different techniques for learning and different techniques for communication. They do not have to have a very, very quick, sharp memory. They use association methods for associating concepts and communicating, and the focus is more on giving an effective, well thought message rather than just rushing and so on. So every stage of life has its own requirements and own skills that we have, but definitely by maybe age 70 or so, this is where cognitive skills decrease, and as a result, language usage, the way that we use language effectively becomes influenced by that, because we use our cognitive skills in order to regulate how we use language. So, and here's a summary of these milestones. Again, I combined this with the information I basically teach when I teach language development or phonetics and so on. Wanted to give you a more of a rounded perspective. And so I hope that if there's anything not clear, go back, take better notes, and be ready. Thank you.